Hello, hello. I am back to help you do this thing called life. We've been talking about Jesus, his temptations, his emotions, just all the things that made him human, just like we are. And we've been looking at what it was that he did in those situations and in certain predicaments. And then, there have been times when we've just kind of gleaned from his wisdom. Maybe he wasn't in the midst of a temptation or um, in an emotional place, but there were times when there was just such wisdom that he was dropping, especially on the way to the cross, that we took a moment to learn from those things. And we've been the last few days just discussing him going to the cross and being on the cross. And y'all, it is so hard to explain, but there is like just this nervous, I don't even know what to call it, about it's the scripture that we're going over today. And I haven't been avoiding it, um but it's like each time I thought we were at this place and then I'd see something else that needed to be highlighted. But it's like each time I thought it was time to do the scripture, just this, I don't know, I feel like it's a holy reverence. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It makes me so emotional because I am so grateful. Um, but yeah, today we're talking about Mark 15 verses, I think, 32 through 34. And it's where it said that it was noon, and the whole that whole area, that whole region turned pitch black. There was darkness, and from 12 to 3, Jesus died on that cross. And at 3 o'clock, he'd just been silent. And as humans, y'all, as humans, remembering that Jesus was a man, he's on a cross being looked at. Things are being said. People are still jeering. But there is so much going on in him emotionally, I believe. Um, I just imagine that there were so many replays going in his head of what had happened, of um, the things that had been done and said, and not just the last 3.5 years of his life, but probably the whole of his life, you know? Um, and and I'm sorry if it seems like I'm dragging out, y'all. It's just that it is, whew, I, I, I can't fully imagine what it was like. Um, and Jesus wasn't the first person nor the last to be crucified, but he was the only one to be crucified for my sake. He was the only one to be crucified for your sake, an innocent man, but he took our place. He took our place. He did it for us. Nothing that he had done, he could have gotten out of it. Oh, I used to love to hear that song. It wasn't the nails that held him to the cross. He could have come down and my soul would still be lost. It wasn't the nails, y'all. Love kept him there. He loved us just that much. But so in verses 32 through 34 is where he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some versions say, "Why have you abandoned me?" And one thing that is noted is that he says, "My God." Jesus was the one that taught us that God was our Father. And he referred to him as Father so many times in scripture, over and over and over. He talks about his Father, his Father, his Father. But this time he knew that God required this. This was, and yes, God was the Father, but there's a different, it's like this was God demanding, like justice. He was demanding that there be a penalty for our sin, and it was Jesus's death. And when we talk about him being human, how many of you can relate to abandonment? You know, how many of you can relate to rejection? How many of you can, and it was that because he had become our sin, and that's what separated him from God. It felt, can you imagine? He had an awareness of who God was for all of eternity. And because of us, he felt that separation. If we ever thought Jesus could not relate to our abandonment issues or our rejection issues, this in and of itself silences those thoughts. And it was dark, y'all. Have you had that dark time in your life? You know, there are some times when people leave you and it's not a big hit. It's like, psh, well. And there are other times when you feel the silence. Sometimes that abandonment is felt from a death. But like in our lives, sometimes a death makes one feel abandoned. But Jesus endured for us. It was black. It was dark. It was a lonely time for him. Nobody else could do it. It had to be. And there are some things in our lives that have to be. As dark as it is, as lonely as it is, if you can just hold out, if you could just hang on, if you could just stay encouraged, if you could just let your mind be kept, keep your mind on Jesus, keep your mind on God. Just hang on, hang on, hang on. It's not going to be dark always. It's not going to be dark always. You won't always feel this lonely. You won't always feel this isolated. But it's necessary for the next thing. It's necessary for the will to be accomplished. It's necessary for God to get the glory out of your life. So whatever you do, hold on. I know I didn't do this justice, y'all. I know I didn't. But I just ask you, get in your own space. Read the scripture and just think about it and try to identify with Jesus the man, because he identified with us. Whew, this has been One Moment with Marcy. I'll be back tomorrow with another moment of momentum producing inspiration. Until then, stay encouraged. And remember, you got to flutter before you can fly. But flying is in your future. I love y'all.